This whole time, for some reason, I thought that you were Mexican American, but
Uh,
then I was reading, and you're actually Filipino. And
yes.
I thought you, I just the whole time I knew you were from Texas, and I just assumed you were Mexican. I mean, also your characters as well too, but you're
Mhm.
actually Filipino. So I often ask black actors who come on the show, like, how have things evolved as far as in the beginning? You know, there's a whole we're seeing much more diversity and inclusion, but there isn't much diversity and inclusion for Filipino actors at all.
No, if
So,
I only played my bloodline, I'd never work. You know,
right,
and Filipino, Scott, Irish, and with a
right.
drop of Native American in there. I mean, it's it's very bizarre. Especially early on for me. I was very proud, and I've always approached it in this fashion. Whenever I am representing a community, whether it's the Latino community in La Bamba or Stand and Deliver, or most recently in the 33, where I played one of the Chilean miners, with Antonio Banderas and uh, um, uh, Juliette Binoche, just an incredibly international cast. Most of us were not Chilean, but early on in my career, this sort of ambiguous brown, did well for me in the respect that I could represent a lot of different communities, and the priority was my acting ability, and that I never took for granted. And in many cases, for instance, when I did Longmire, I flew on my own dime to the Lame Deer Reservation, in Montana to get the blessing, of the Cheyenne Nation. So I try to approach those things with respect, knowing that I am representing a community and trying to bring dignity to that. But yeah, I am not 100% authentic anything except American, you know? And so we have to take that into consideration when, it's like, well, he isn't really this or he isn't really that. What's beautiful is that we've gotten, and as far as African American actors go, especially, there is more opportunity. We're seeing more opportunity for Asian American actors. We're seeing more opportunity for Native American actors. When I was doing Longmire, I was able to bring Graham Greene and Tantu Cardinal and Julia Jones and a number of other Native American actors into the fold and into some really nice roles. So it's not just a matter of getting ahead myself; it's keeping the door open behind me and also being aware of who else is out there. And I think there's a much greater effort on the part of not only actors but writers and directors and producers to do that sort of thing. Prodigal Son, I'm incredibly proud of because we are constantly looking for diversity, within our cast. I mean, first of all, I got Aurora Perrineau and Frank Hartz and Keiko Agena. I mean, my team, the investigative team in the New York Major Crimes Department is very, very diverse. And we addressed some of those issues in this season as well. Um, but it also starts with Mark Sachs, our casting director. He's fantastic. In the episode that I directed, we flipped the role from being, a white guy to being, an Indian American, Southeast Asian, actor. And it's having that sort of awareness to like, let's find the best actor for this. Let's get more faces out there that are representative of America. And that starts before you ever get to set, before you ever get to the camera. It starts with the writing, it starts with the producing, and then the directing, and then we make sure that we follow through with that when casting.
What's great about that is that you playing these various roles, it's not cultural appropriation, it's very respectful. And I believe I even read that you have been made a part of you're an honorary member of a Native American tribe just because of the
Twice,
respect you've given. Yeah, the
yeah,
respect you've
twice.
given to that community. Yeah, so that's really cool that you're
Well, that
doing
means
this,
a
but
lot
it's
to me, man. It means a lot to me.
yeah.
I was adopted and given a name both into the Lakota Nation and the Northern Cheyenne Nation as well. And then, back in the day, man, I marched with Cesar Chavez. I got
Mm,
to hang out with him. A lot of the charities and the causes that I was involved with, were Latino causes, and to this day, through people like Luis Valdez and Edward James Olmos, who are dear, dear friends. So we represent and we uh, for me, because my heritage lines are very blurred, I could stand up and wave the flag and be representative. And I love the fact that you said it's not cultural appropriation. And
yeah.
certainly in my situation, it is about being an ally and being a friend. to many
Yeah.
communities because I've had that platform.
So I got to talk about La Bamba for a minute. I mentioned the top of the show, but it's one of my favorite movies. I remember I was very young when I saw it. I was just so and to be honest with you, I think it was my first time seeing any kind of film with Latin folks in it. Like I don't
Right?
think I've ever saw that before. What year was La Bamba?
Came
80.
out in '87. We made it in
Yeah.
'86. You know,
So
the
I'm
fact that
10 years old.
yeah, right.
I'm 10. I saw it at the movie theater, me and my mother, and it had a huge impact on me, just how amazing the acting was, and of course the character of Richie Valens. It was really powerful. And when you look back on that experience in your life, because I read also that they went through 500 people and they eventually go to Texas
Yeah.
and they find you and they realize you do a screen test and you're there's other roles you're auditioning for and you land this. But I mean, that was just groundbreaking for the time. When you think back on that, what are your memories, your thoughts?
Just being scared to death.
Oh
I
wow.
mean, I was an unknown kid from Texas, man. I'm not a rock star. I didn't play the guitar, but Luis saw something in my performance that he felt captured the essence of Richie. And what's wonderful is that the first time Bob Morales, the real Bob Morales, laid eyes on me, he goes, "I knew it was you." He goes, "I knew you were going to get it." You know, and so I had the blessing from the family, from day one. And they were there all the time. I had stacks and stacks of research, to do my homework with. But the greatest resource of all was having Connie, his mother, there, and then Connie
Mm,
Jr., who was 12, when he passed, and Irma, and Bob, who had all these memories, So it was an amazing time. But the funny thing is, you never really know. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes but there
yeah.
most of the time you don't know when you're doing something that's going to become classic. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't know it was this little independent film. It was made for $6 million. It wasn't even a studio film. It was a negative pickup, which means that Columbia and Warner Brothers didn't pay for the budget, but they were going to pay for the distribution. So,
Mm,
Taylor Hackford and Luis Valdez found the money mostly through the soundtrack, really, with Los Lobos, and that was recorded before I ever got cast.
yeah.
Uh, so to have that come out and to be such a cultural touchstone for a generation, that's why I never resent someone going Reggie whenever they see me.
Oh my God, that's that the plane crash. It haunted me. And isn't the opening scene, does he look up and he sees a plane?
Yeah, which really happened.
Ah,
I mean, so much,
ah.
so much of that film is authentic. I mean, it's the real deal. There was a midair collision over Pacoima Junior High on a day that he was not at school, and it killed his best friend.
Hmm.
So that began Richie's fixation and fear, of planes at an early age.
So speaking of not knowing, a lot of folks may not know Young Guns, which of course you were in. This film got really bad reviews. The critics did not like it at all, and then it blows up. It's a
Mhm.
massive hit. So I got to ask you, just for anybody out there, maybe it's not even Hollywood. Maybe you have a boss who's giving you a bad critique or whatever. But when you see it's getting bad reviews, are you thinking, okay, it's a wrap? Like this movie's going to flop. It's not going to do well. Or are you thinking, you know what, this is still going to do good? Forget them.
I mean, it's interesting. I just wrote a novel with my wife Yvonne, who did 30 illustrations of it, and I spent 10 years writing this, and I got a bunch of rejection letters, and it's like, well, I still like it. I still think it's really good. And then it finally found, its publisher, and it went out there, and the reviews are fantastic, and it's been very successful. It's called The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira. So when Young Guns comes out, and some of the critics are ravaging it, I had to take a step back and go, I really like it. I think it's really good. And understand that why some of these critics were giving it a hard time. And it's because they were calling it the Brat Pack Western. And it's like, after all the John Hughes films, they had kind of thrown together all of these hot young actors in Hollywood. And it was like, wow, okay, I'm the only ethnic member of the Brat Pack. Fine. And actually, one of my favorite bad reviews of me forever is from that film, where a critic said Lou Diamond Phillips has given up the native diet of his tribe and has taken up chewing scenery instead.
Wow.
Oh no, that's good. I mean, at least
Wow.
it's clever, you know. But the thing is, people look back at that film now, and then obviously it did so well that it spawned a sequel. But
Yeah.
people look back at that film now and it holds up. And you have people writing about not only was it a really wonderful film, but it brought the Western back. At that time, the Western was dead. Not quite buried, but it was dead. And Young Guns becomes a success. And so after that comes Silverado. After that comes Unforgiven, and all of a sudden, and after that comes Dances with Wolves, also shot by our cinematographer Dean Semler, who became the go-to guy for westerns. So in many ways, Young Guns had a much more far-reaching impact than meets the eye.
Yeah, you just never know. You just never know. You just never know. It's a, that
I
was a
mean,
really
bottom line,
interesting.
you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in what
Yeah.
you're doing. And what you do is not going to be for everybody. And you also have to suffer the slings and arrows of of the critics. But that's their job. They're there to be critical.